He swore he'd love only me his entire life, but in the blink of an eye, to protect the other woman, he personally pushed me off a cliff. When I woke up from the intense pain and found my lower body paralyzed, I saw them kissing at the end of the corridor through the hospital room window. My wheelchair hadn't even gotten warm yet, but their lips were already locked in an inseparable embrace. When I was 8 months pregnant, Robert accompanied me to the mountain to pray for good fortune, but a landslide suddenly occurred during the trip. Robert fell off a cliff trying to save me and was presumed dead. My lower body was paralyzed, I fell into a deep coma, and I ultimately lost the baby. My close relatives and friends on both sides all resented me, calling me a murderer. I hated myself too, falling into severe depression amidst the longing and regret, attempting suicide multiple times. The last time, after I cut my wrists, my parents abandoned me in the hospital corridor. In a blur of consciousness, I suddenly saw Robert's figure. President Robert, a mystic, once predicted that the child in your wife's belly would bring misfortune upon Tiffany's child. To ensure Tiffany's safety, you had no choice but to stage the accident. Now your wife is close to dying because of this. Perhaps you should step forward and talk to her. Robert said calmly, "No rush. This is Tiffany's critical time for her delivery. Once her child is safely born, I will return. As long as Tiffany is safe, I am willing to be Sarah's legs for the rest of my life." I looked at my wrist. No rush? But my blood was almost gone. I looked at the redness before my eyes and suddenly felt it would be okay to just let it all drain away. Because of the paralysis in my lower body, I had been living a life worse than death for the past year. The only hope that kept me alive was the thought of Robert and the child I never got to meet. Now, after hearing Robert's words, my only hope was shattered. Soon, a nurse ushed to my side from not far away. "Quick! To the emergency room. This family is unbelievable. Are they trying to kill their own daughter? Ms. Miller, wake up. Don't sleep. If you fall asleep, you won't wake up." My consciousness began to fade, and Robert's figure in the distance gradually blurred. His assistant's voice suddenly rang out. "President Robert, I think I saw your wife." Robert turned to look, but only saw the empty corridor. He scoffed, "Impossible, her legs are broken, how could she get out?" His tone made it sound like I was a useless person with no ability to care for myself. In his heart, I was probably long forgotten. I lay on the operating table, completely consumed by despair. I once thought Robert was my safe harbor, but now, his indifference finally made me see the reality. My hand unconsciously reached for my abdomen. There was supposed to be a tiny life I had eagerly awaited. I thought Robert, like me, would want to give her a warm home. "Baby, I'm so sorry. I couldn't protect you." In despair, my consciousness grew hazy, and I slowly closed my eyes. I don't know how long passed before a nurse woke me. I instantly jolted awake from a nightmare. In the dream, countless familiar yet distorted faces surrounded me. They shrieked and questioned me. "Sarah, it's because you insisted on Rob going with you. You killed Rob. You killed my son. Sarah, if it weren't for you, Rob wouldn't have died. My grandson wouldn't have died. You killed them. Sarah, why wasn't it you who died?" My clothes were drenched in cold sweat. I gasped for air, still shaken. Every day I would experience the same nightmare. I could no longer distinguish between nightmare and reality. The nurse wiped the sweat from my forehead and pushed me out of the operating room. "I looked around but couldn't find your family. I'll take you to your hospital room." I quietly replied, "Thank you." Just outside the emergency room door, I saw Robert standing there. Robert looked at me, his face full of surprise. He almost blurted out, "Sadie, what are you doing here?" Yes, how could a cripple like me go out on my own? But in an instant, he put away his surprise, acting as if nothing was wrong, and said, "Sadie, I'm back." With that, he stepped forward and hugged me tightly. He said with deep affection, "Sadie, I missed you so much." But the warmth of his embrace only felt incredibly ironic. Robert held me tenderly and slowly walked towards the hospital room. Pushing open the door, he carefully placed me on the hospital bed. "Sadie, I've always been thinking of you. Countless days and nights, I kept thinking how wonderful it would be if I could see you again. How wonderful it would be if I could see our child again." He spoke softly, holding my hands tightly. I listened quietly, my gaze fixed on his face. He looked even more high-spirited than before. He must have been very happy spending the past year with Tiffany. He leaned down and kissed my forehead. "Sadie, you've lost weight. I was severely injured when I fell off the cliff back then. Fortunately, I met kind locals who took me to the hospital." He had only half finished his explanation when his phone rang shrilly. He took it out and his face, which had shown a touch of warmth, instantly changed. I glanced at it. The caller ID showed Tiff. He quickly looked at me and said, "Sadie, I have something to do. I'll be right back. Wait for me, I'll be back immediately." With that, he turned and hurried away. His hasty retreat made me feel utterly disgusted. It wasn't until dark that Robert returned. I gritted my teeth, pushed myself up from my weakened body, got into my wheelchair, and left the hospital room. Walking down the corridor, I peered through a gap in a door and saw the scene inside the hospital room. Robert was playfully interacting with the newborn baby, a wide smile on his face. I had never seen such a tender smile on his face before. Tiffany was leaning against the bed, watching Robert and the baby with happiness in her eyes. It looked like a happy family of three. This heartwarming scene was like a sharp knife, piercing directly into my heart. Tiffany spoke softly. "Rob, I always feel guilty towards Sarah. After I've recovered from the birth, I'll go thank her properly." Robert frowned. "Don't go, her matter has nothing to do with you." Tiffany paused, then said softly, "She surely didn't want such an accident to happen. I was pregnant too, so I can understand her better. Back then, when David died unexpectedly on a mission, I wouldn't have been able to survive with the child if it weren't for you." As she spoke, Tiffany lowered her head and began to cry softly. Robert's heart ached. He walked over and hugged her tightly. "Tiff, you are just too kind. Everything I've done for you, I did willingly. You deserve my kindness." Robert looked at Tiffany with lingering affection. Tiffany shyly raised her head, meeting his gaze. As if on cue, they kissed. Robert deepened the kiss, pulling Tiffany towards him and pressing her down onto the bed. "Tiff, I've waited too long." Following that, Tiffany let out soft moans. Hearing this, my mind felt like it had been struck by lightning. The grief and despair in my heart instantly overwhelmed me, and a wave of nausea churned in my stomach. I felt dizzy and like I couldn't breathe. Before I could recover, someone nearby suddenly shoved me hard. "Who are you? What do you want?" My upper body slammed hard against the doorframe. I endured the pain and turned my head. It was Tiffany's mother, Susan Reed. Her voice also alerted Robert and Tiffany in the hospital room. Robert turned and met my eyes, instantly looking panicked. "Sadie? What are you doing here?" Robert quickly got off the bed. Tiffany quickly covered her chest and exchanged a look with her mother at the door. Susan Reed shoved me hard again and suddenly questioned me loudly. "I'm asking you, who are you? What are you doing sneaking arrow UND by the hospital room door? Are you trying to steal the baby?" Without waiting for me to explain, she started shouting insults. "You must be here to steal the baby. Everyone, come quickly. Come and see, there's a thief here trying to steal a baby." Soon, people from surrounding hospital rooms were attracted by the commotion. They gathered around me and started insulting me. Some even rushed forward to push and shove me. I was pushed to the ground in the chaos, looking disheveled and with my clothes torn. The scene was complete pandemonium. But Robert, he just tightly shielded Tiffany and the baby, never once looking at me. It wasn't until he confirmed that Tiffany and the child were safe that he seemed to suddenly remember me. He rushed over and picked me up. He asked anxiously, "Sadie, are you okay? Don't be afraid, I'm here." It was too chaotic just now. I couldn't push those people away immediately. I looked at him, tears blurring my vision, but my heart felt ice cold. He carried me towards the hospital room. Seeing my injuries, he called a doctor. The doctor prescribed ointment for me, but I couldn't apply it myself. Robert offered, "Sadie, I'll help you." But when he saw my atrophied legs, he couldn't hide the look of disgust in his eyes. He gave a small laugh and averted his gaze. "Sadie, it's okay, I'm here. I'll definitely cure your legs." I found it laughable. "Really? I thought you'd find them disgusting." "How could I?" He denied it. "You're my wife. I'll always love you." Robert stayed at the hospital with me for a week. But I knew that when I was asleep, he was always with Tiffany. Dad, Mom, and Mr. and Mrs. Peterson were overjoyed to hear he was back. They gathered by my hospital bed, chatting happily, as if nothing had changed. Only I had become a cripple. A few days later, Robert brought me home to rest. At the dinner table, in front of the whole family, he explained to me, "Sadie, this past year while I was away getting treatment, I thought about you constantly. But I had no choice but to be with Tiffany. Can you try to understand? David saved my life. I promised him I would protect Tiffany." Robert's voice carried a hint of fatigue, as if burdened by 1,000 pounds. But I didn't want to watch him act anymore. I looked at him calmly. "Robert, let's get a divorce." Mom slammed down the dishes. She pushed me into the room and slammed the door shut. "Sarah, stop making a fuss. Look at you, crippled like this. Who else will want you if you leave Robert? Now that he's back, just live your lives together properly. If he hadn't saved you, you'd be dead already. Stop causing trouble all the time." These words were like knives, piercing directly into my heart. Dad and Mom were also fed up with me. For the next few days, Robert was constantly with me. One day, Tiffany suddenly showed up at the house with the baby for a visit. The moment she entered, her gaze fell on my disabled legs, and a sneer played on her lips. "Sadie, I came to see you." While Robert was out of the room, she finally dropped the smile. "Sarah, look at the state you're in. So pathetic." Tiffany said this deceptively, while pushing the baby forward. "I came today just to tell you, this child is Robert's. You're crippled now, you'll never be able to have children for him again. I advise you to divorce him soon, don't hold us back." I felt a surge of blood rush to my head, struggling to get up from my wheelchair, wanting to slap her. But before I could get close, Tiffany suddenly pulled out a small knife, cut her own arm, and then shrieked, "Sarah, what are you doing? Are you crazy? Let go of me!" Amidst the screams, Robert rushed in. Tiffany immediately hid in his arms. "Rob, help me quickly!" Sarah saw me with the baby and insisted I stole her man, and then she came at me, trying to slash me and the baby. Robert grabbed Tiffany's bleeding arm and glared at me, full of rage. "Sarah, you're really crazy. I'm taking you to see a psychiatrist tomorrow. If that doesn't work, I'll send you to a mental hospital." Hearing this, Tiffany, hidden in Robert's arms, subtly curved her lips. I truly couldn't stand to see the two of them for another second. I asked Robert back with a trembling voice, "You think I'm crazy too?" Robert didn't answer, just held Tiffany, took the baby, and left quickly. Simply unreasonable. I looked at the mess on the floor, my heart filled with humiliation and resentment. I clenched my teeth, trembling, and picked up my phone, dialing the number I had been searching for a long time. I called George and Martha White, David's parents, and got straight to the point. Hello, Uncle George, Aunt Martha, regarding Tiffany's child, I need to make something clear to you. I didn't want the elderly couple to continue being deceived. David was Robert's friend. So, I had met him a few times. He was a loyal person, and his parents were the same. Therefore, I couldn't let his parents be manipulated by Robert and Tiffany, even if the truth I was revealing was cruel. Thinking of the moment Robert held Tiffany tightly and left, the desire for revenge in my heart had never been so strong. I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. I had to get revenge for myself and my child. They all had to pay the price. As soon as Robert left with Tiffany, Mom came in, her face full of anger. She pointed her finger at me and scolded me in a loud voice. Sarah, look at you, what have you done with your life? Making such a scene, do you have any sense? What kind of background does the Peterson family have, and what are you? Quickly back down and make this marriage work. Stop causing trouble. My heart was full of grievance, and I retorted stubbornly, Mom, you don't understand what I've been through. What he did to me. Mom stomped her foot in anger. You just have no brains. You'll regret it later. I'm warning you, our whole family is counting on Robert. Don't you forget the tea. I turned my head, refusing to listen. Seeing that I remained silent, Mom slammed the door and left. She and Dad spent their days idle, either playing poker or eating and drinking everywhere. Because of this family background, Mr. and Mrs. Peterson had always looked down on me. All our relatives and friends said that our Miller family had married up, that it was a blessing I couldn't have earned even by praying for it my whole life to meet Robert and marry him. I used to think so too. Meeting Robert, marrying him, was the greatest luck of my life. But I never expected that he just saw me as someone easy to use and deceive. Thinking of this, my heart was filled with the urge to escape this marriage. I took out my phone, contacted a lawyer, and quietly drafted the divorce papers. I waited for several days, and Robert finally came home. He offered no explanation. The first thing he did when he got home was take a shower. He didn't say anything actively after coming out of the shower either. I took a deep breath and forced myself to appear gentle. I walked up to him and took the initiative to say softly, Rob, I was too naive in the past, and too impulsive in my actions. It was my fault. Robert's expression softened, and he reached out and hugged me. Sadie, you are the most well-behaved. I seized the opportunity and said, I'm so bored staying at home by myself right now. I want to work at your company to pass the time, okay? After speaking, I observed his expression. Robert raised an eyebrow, looking suspicious, and asked, why the sudden change? Stay home and rest well, I'll support you. Work is very tiring. I quickly waved my hand, putting on a pitiful look. How could I? I just want something to do. I don't want to stay home all day overthinking. Robert was silent for a while, looking me up and down, and finally nodded. All right, you can try coming in tomorrow. I secretly sighed in relief, but showed nothing on my face. The first step of revenge was final. Ly taken. From now on, I would make those who hurt me pay a terrible price for what they did. It had only been a few days since I started working at the company, but everyone knew that I, a cripple, was the president's wife. One day, as usual, I went to the break room to get some water. As soon as I entered, I heard a few colleagues gathered together, discussing in hushed voices. Did you see? Our president's wife is actually a cripple, right? How can she be worthy of our handsome and rich president? Another person chimed in, exactly. I think Tiffany is much better than her, so pretty and elegant. Standing next to the president, that's a perfect match. They chattered on, mocking me without restraint, completely unaware that I was standing right behind them. Hearing Tiffany's name from their mouths, I was surprised at first. But then I thought about it, and it seemed perfectly reasonable. It turned out that everyone at the company already knew about her. Robert had kept me in the dark for so many years. Hearing these harsh words, I was about to speak up and retort when suddenly, a familiar figure stood before me. I looked up, and it was Robert. He looked cold, his gaze sweeping over everyone. His voice was low and authoritative. "What are you all talking about? Is all your work done? Gossiping about your boss's family behind their backs. Is this what the company taught you?" The colleagues immediately fell silent, their faces alternating between pale and red. Robert then said sternly, "Starting today, you don't need to come to work anymore. Pack your things and leave." With that, he strode over to me, personally pushed my wheelchair, and headed towards his office. When we reached the office, Robert gently settled me on the sofa. He squatted down, took my hands in his, looked at me with deep affection, and slowly said, "Sadie, don't take those words to heart. In my heart, you are always the most important. When I married you, I committed to you. No matter what happens, you will always be the person I love most. Don't pay attention to the rumors at the company. I'll handle them myself." I looked at him, a mix of emotions swirling inside me. The sweetness of the past intertwined with the chaos of the present, leaving me speechless. But in the end, I could only compliment him. What a great performance. I didn't expose him, just gently nodded. In the evening, Robert had something to do, so he had his assistant take me home first. Ever since I started coming to the company, he personally picked me up and dropped me off every day. He even prepared all 3 of my meals himself. Even though he was so busy every day, he still remembered everything about me. What great fortune I had. Since Robert wanted me to leave first, I obediently agreed, but as soon as his assistant left downstairs, I hailed a taxi and went back to the company. Perhaps it was a woman's intuition. I felt something was off about Robert. At noon in his office, I had checked his schedule, and there were no meetings or social engagements for the evening. Back at the company, I quietly went to Robert's office door. Only a desk lamp was lit in his office, and I could see figures moving in the dim light. The door was slightly ajar, and the sounds coming from inside sent a chill through me. I heard Tiffany whining coyly, "Rob, how long are we going to keep doing this sneakily? I don't want this anymore." Robert's voice followed, "Tiff, I know you feel wronged, but I wronged Sadie back then. I can't be so heartless now. Just wait a little longer. When I find the right time, I'll handle things with her and give you a proper status." Tiffany whined, "You always lie to me. I don't care. Sarah is at the company every day now, making it impossible for us to see each other. What are we going to do?" Robert chuckled, "What's the big deal? Don't forget, she's a cripple. Her wheelchair can't get far." With that, Tiffany giggled, covering her face. Then, sounds of intimacy came from the office. I trembled all over, clenching my fists tightly. I pulled out my phone and quietly started the video recording function. I returned home, felt completely exhausted, and took a shower before going to sleep. It wasn't until late at night that I heard the sound of the lock turning at the front door. Robert walked in, looking tired. After showering, he came over to the bed and leaned down as if to kiss me. Filled with disgust, I turned my head, avoiding his touch. He paused, a flicker of confusion on his face. "What's wrong today?" Robert asked softly. I suppressed my emotions. "Nothing, I'm just tired." He reached out and ruffled my hair. "I told you work would make you tired. Maybe you shouldn't go anymore?" I shook my head. It's okay. Not working makes me feel like a. Robert pulled me into a hug. How could you? You're my wife. Who dares call you useless? Whoever dares say that, I'll make them useless. He continued, Sadie, I've scheduled an appointment with the best orthopedic doctor for you. You'll have a consultation in a few days. We'll definitely be able to fix your legs. Don't worry, Sadie. Even if your legs can't be cured, I'll be your legs from now on. Wherever you want to go, whatever you want to do, I'll be with you. Hearing this, I scoffed inwardly. But to continue staying at the company, I had to pretend to be moved. I looked up, my eyes slightly red. Really? Rob, you're so good to me. Robert fell for it. My yielding made him feel pleased and lowered his guard even more. I also successfully used my previous accounting knowledge to get into the company's finance department. Because of Robert's apparent regard for me, everyone at the company treated me extremely respectfully, afraid of offending me and being fired by Robert. I was happy to use his influence to make things easier, which made things more convenient. A few days later, Tiffany suddenly showed up at the company with the baby. She rushed into Robert's face, her face full of anxiety. Rob, quickly, look, what's wrong with the baby? She's been sleeping all day, hasn't had any milk all day. I'm so worried, I had to come find you. Robert looked worried, carried the baby, and walked out immediately. Let's go to the hospital. Tiffany stopped as she passed me. She sobbed, Sadie, I'm so sorry. David is gone, I'm alone and helpless. I really couldn't think of anyone else besides Rob. Please don't mind. I just looked at her. She suddenly rushed over and grabbed my arm. Sadie, please don't be angry, okay? I know you're not happy, but David has been gone for so long, and I've been trying to cope by myself. I'm really tired. I'm begging you, please don't be angry. Before I could speak, Robert returned, I don't know when. He directly grabbed Tiffany's wrist. Why are you begging her? Tiff, stop crying. I'm here, the baby will be fine. Then he quickly explained to me, Sadie, the baby is important. I'll be right back. Robert pulled Tiffany away. As they were about to leave, she glanced back at me, a look of triumph instantly appearing on her face. I still didn't react, continuing to bury my head in the financial reports. After all, I had more important things to do. The colleagues around me looked on with curious and strange expressions. Everyone was watching for the drama, but I had no desire to play along with their act. A moment later, a text message popped up on my phone. Sarah, in your crippled state, do you really think you can keep monopolizing Rob? Be smart and leave early. I remained unmoved, my hands continuing to work, but I silently noted this down. A few days later, Robert, as usual, told me to leave work first, saying he had a last-minute meeting. I knew exactly what he was up to, so I nodded obediently and rode home in his assistant's car. As soon as his assistant's car left, I quietly turned back to the company and hid in the shadow of the stairwell. Sure enough, shortly after, Tiffany, swaying her hips, walked into Robert's office like she knew the way. I quickly pulled out my phone, opened the company group chat, and typed a message. President has notified everyone to come back for overtime now, urgent task. After sending it, I stared intently at the office door, waiting quietly. Before long, ambiguous sounds of intimacy came from the office. Rob, it's always in your office. Can't we go somewhere else? Robert held her. Isn't the office good? Isn't the office more exciting? Tiffany wrapped her arms around his neck. You seem distracted today. What's wrong? Did you get some action from home? Robert snorted. Slept with Sarah? Just looking at Sarah's paralyzed legs makes me sick. How could I possibly touch her? I gritted my teeth, trying to stay calm. Sarah, just let it go. As the two of them were entwined in the office, colleagues arrived one after another. Hearing the sounds from the office, everyone gathered around curiously. The office door wasn't closed tightly, and through the gap, Robert and Tiffany's embracing bodies were clearly visible to everyone. People couldn't help but gasp in shock, taking out their phones to record. Hearing the commotion, Robert and Tiffany finally realized something was wrong. I seized the opportunity, went to the office door, and pushed it open forcefully. In that instant, a scene of intimacy was revealed. Robert and Tiffany were disheveled, their faces full of panic. Tiffany shrieked, grabbed her clothes, and scrambled to hide under the desk. Robert hurriedly put on his clothes, both startled and angry, and roared at the colleagues outside the door. "Who told you to come here? Get out, all of you!" I stood in front of the crowd, staring straight at him, my eyes cold. He met my gaze, his face turning pale then red. He opened his mouth, but couldn't say anything. The farce of betrayal was finally completely exposed at this moment. The long-suppressed resentment in my heart finally found an outlet. But I didn't feel a shred of joy. After Robert chased everyone away and told Tiffany to leave, he walked towards me. Robert looked upset. Knowing he had been exposed, he was probably trying to figure out how to explain. He half squatted down, his face full of anxiety, and explained to me, "Sadie, things aren't what you saw. There's nothing special between Tiffany and me. I just made a mistake today out of momentary confusion. Please believe me. Sadie, we've had so many years of feelings between us. You can't stop believing me because of this. David was my last friend. I couldn't refuse the things he entrusted to me before he died." I listened to his excuses and scoffed inwardly. Really? He entrusted you to take care of his wife, and you took care of her right into bed? Robert couldn't refute that. I spoke again. "Robert, stop explaining. Let's get a divorce." Robert's eyes widened, his face full of disbelief, and he raised his voice in protest. "No, I won't agree to a divorce. Sadie, I know you're angry, but think about it. In your current state, who else would be willing to take good care of you if you divorce me? I wouldn't feel comfortable entrusting you to anyone." Even now, he was still acting. "Robert, who is it that made me this way?" His expression changed. "Sadie, what are you talking about? It was an accident, wasn't it?" I asked back coldly, "Really? Was it really an accident?" "Robert, you forced me." Seeing him so stubborn, I stopped wasting words. I pulled out my phone and dialed the tax department's tip line. During my time working here, I had found evidence of his tax evasion. After hanging up, Robert's face was full of rage, and he yelled at me, "Sarah, are you crazy?" He snatched my phone and started searching for evidence. "Where are the files? Give them to me." "Sarah, what good would it do you if something happens to me? We're husband and wife." He kept searching my phone for evidence. I looked up at his anxious and flustered state. "Don't both searching. I already mailed the evidence. Robert, you never treated me like your wife." Hearing my words, he smashed my phone. He grabbed my shoulders and shook me hard. "Sarah, why? Why are you doing this?" I took a deep breath, and the long-suppressed anger poured out like a bursting flood. "Robert, you know very well. I knew the whole truth long ago. Our child, you deliberately killed her, and my paralysis in my lower body, it's all thanks to you. You are a murderer, and I won't let you get away with it." Hearing this, Robert's face instantly turned pale, and he staggered back a few steps, collapsing onto the ground. Soon, the tax department launched an investigation. Robert's company was thoroughly investigated. With solid evidence, he ultimately couldn't escape prison. The day the matter was confirmed, I went to see him and had him sign the divorce papers. He still didn't agree. "Robert, if you don't agree, I'll sue you. Besides the divorce, I will hold you accountable for my legs and for my child." By this point, he could no longer deny it. Because of the company investigation, he was incredibly busy, completely neglecting himself, and lost a lot of weight looking distraught. "Sadie, I will make it up to you." He picked up the pen and signed his name. "What I said in the past will always hold true. Sadie, I will always protect you." His words suddenly reminded me of the past. My parents never cared for me when I was little. Many times when I was a child, they would leave me alone at home just so they could play poker. The narrow streets in that old part of town were small and crowded back then, with all sorts of people. Often, it would be dark by the time I walked home alone from school. That day, a group of drunk thugs blocked me at the alley entrance. They grabbed me and cornered me against the wall. "Hey, little girl, you're looking pretty juicy. Be good and have some fun with us brothers." With that, they started putting their hands all over me, tearing at my school uniform. I screamed in fear. Just as I was despairing, Robert suddenly appeared. "Hey, let her go. I've already called the police, and they'll be here any minute." That day, the thugs didn't believe him at all. Instead, they turned on him and beat him up. In the end, a neighbor called the police, and when the police arrived, they took the thugs away. Robert had fought them, but he was outnumbered. His face was bruised and swollen, and his school uniform was torn. I bravely stepped forward to look at him. "I'm sorry, He winced in pain but grinned, his teeth showing. "It's nothing, my fists are tough. I could take down 10 more of them." I laughed at him. He laughed at himself too. "Don't be afraid, Sarah, I'll protect you from now on." That single sentence from him meant he looked out for me for many years. He also felt sorry for my parents' neglect of me and always said he would be good to me forever. I truly believed him back then. But in the end, I was terribly deceived. Robert's company matter was serious, so he couldn't avoid prison. I heard that Robert went to see Tiffany before going to prison. Tiffany refused to see him. She cut off all ties with Robert and insisted the child was David's. Robert finally saw Tiffany for who she was. Without Robert's financial support, Tiffany and her mother quickly struggled. Although David was dead, the White family still had some assets. So Tiffany planned to go back to the White family. She had been living in an apartment Robert arranged for her to make it easier to have her affair with him. But her affair with Robert was already public knowledge. George and Martha White had also found out that the child was not David's, and without a second thought, they threw Tiffany out. Susan Reed, with nowhere to turn, was furious and went to the White family to demand an explanation. "Do you White family have any conscience? Our Tiff sacrificed so much for David, and her child is already so big. How can you kick her out now? If David knew how you're treating her and their child, he'd be turning in his grave." George and Martha White were furious. "Get out now, or we'll call the police. How dare you even mention our Dave? Get out, both of you." Tiffany and her mother refused to leave. Ultimately, David's younger brother had people beat them until they were bruised and swollen, and they were kicked out in disgrace. The mother and daughter were left without support and had to live on the streets, homeless, barely surviving by scavenging for trash. Several years passed in the blink of an eye, and Robert was released from prison after serving his sentence. I also found part-time work online using my past accounting knowledge. Although I wasn't wealthy, I was at least living with dignity. After learning about the harm Robert had caused me, Mom finally reflected. Perhaps it was also because she had reached middle age and couldn't cause trouble anymore. She often sat by the front door, staring blankly. It's also possible that Dad's passing was a big blow to her. A couple of years ago, Dad died at the poker table because he won a big hand and got too excited. Maybe it was fate, but Mom completely changed after that, never playing cards again. Robert came to see me the day he got out of prison. He limped to my front door, dragging a leg that had been broken in prison. He was so thin I barely recognized him. Before he could speak, he dropped to his knees with a thud, his face full of pleading. "Sadie, I know I was wrong. These past few years in prison, I repented every day. Please forgive me. Give me a chance. I will definitely take good care of you." When Mom saw him, she grabbed a broom and started chasing him away. "Robert, how dare you show your face here and come looking for our Sarah? Get out! Get out now!" Robert, unable to stand steady on one leg, was knocked to the ground. He half lay on the ground, looking up at me. I stood by the door, looking at him LDLY, my heart felt completely unmoved. People really do change. I knew how much I loved Robert before, but now, seeing him again, I had no feelings whatsoever. I shook my head. "Robert, it's all in the past." He reached out and blocked the doorframe. "No, it's not over. I still love you, Sadie." I didn't understand what Robert meant by love. His love was too cheap and too heavy for me to bear. I just said firmly, "Robert, but I don't love you anymore." Hearing my words, he turned away in silence. Outside, a heavy rain suddenly began to fall. He didn't heed the downpour, walking into the rain looking lost and dejected. My gaze followed him. His figure grew distant, eventually disappearing in the rain curtain. The rain washed everything clean, and the next day dawned clear. Sunlight streamed through the window, and I, too, had finally broken free from that painful past and welcomed a new life. End of novel.